Story 1. My best friend. After an argument with some kid from our school in a shop, we began walking away down the street. Kid. Where are you going, coward? Friend. Your mother's house. Kid. My mother lives the other way, idiot. Friend. No, I meant your biological mother. Story 2. Air traffic control is doing a poor job of vectoring an Airbus A330 in for landing. Pilot. You've left us too high. I don't think we can make the approach. Air traffic control. You've got speed brakes on that thing, don't you? Pilot. After a noticeable pause. Yes, but those are for my mistakes, not yours. Story 3. A friend in high school on our way to a track meet was staring at a car in the parking lot that was really nice. When this guy saw him, Guy, why bother looking at that when you know you'll never be able to get one? My friend, the same reason you watch adult films. The entire bus erupted, and it's still one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Story 4. A dude in my class called out a semi-friend of mine, saying that people are talking behind his back. In fact, that wasn't the case as far as I know, and that guy said, well, you know what they say about you? Nothing, nobody cares. Story 5. So there were two girls fighting, and one of them looked at my sister, who was minding her own business, and said, you go to hell too. My sister. Do you want me to say anything to your mom? Story 6. It's got to be the aliens locker room scene for me. Hudson. Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man? Vasquez. No, have you? Edit. Brain fumbled with the film title. Story 7. English class in middle school. Kid A. Hey. Kid B. Your mom waited on me at McDonald's last night. Must feel bad having a mom that works at McDonald's. Kid B. At least my mom gets out of bed to go to work. English teacher. Louder than he realized. Wow. The rest of us were laughing so hard. The teacher next door popped her head in to see what was going on. Story 8. Context. John Oliver from HBO interviews Stephen Hawking. John Oliver. And there may be a universe where I am more intelligent than you? Stephen Hawking. There may even be a universe where you are funny. Story 9. Overheard by me, the school bus driver, one fifth-grade student was belittling a first grader. When it was time for a comeback, the first grader shouted out, "Congratulations!" The bewildered fifth grader had nothing to say and went to sit down with her friends in the back of the bus. Story 10. Many, many years ago, when we were about 18, a friend of mine was arguing with another person we knew. This person was trying to be a tough guy and intimidate my buddy. He says, "My feet are registered." Without missing a beat, my friend replies, "Where?" "Health and sanitation." 40 years later, I still crack up at this when it comes to mind. Story 11. A guy makes fun of his bald friend by rubbing his head and saying, "Wow, your head is as smooth as my wife's bottom." The friend also rubs his head and says, "Wow, you're right." Story 12. I used to work with this 70-year-old woman. She was our supervisor. And one day, one of the ladies who worked with us told this old lady to kiss my ass. And the old lady replied, "Where do I start? You're so fat your crack goes all the way up your back." Story 13. During World War I, Switzerland had a tiny standing army, but they were very skilled marksmen. Wilhelm II of Germany asked what 250,000 Swiss troops would do if he decided to invade with 500,000 German troops. The Swiss said, "Shoot twice and go home." Story 14. 18th century British radical politician John Wilkes was told in Parliament by a political opponent, "Sir, I do not know whether you will die on the gallows or of the pox." Wilkes shot back with, "That depends, my lord, on whether I embrace your lordship's principles or your mistress." Story 15. I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a coworker and her friends, and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her liking. She jokingly got up in my face and said, "Smell that? Smells like cowardice." A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry. That must be me. I just ate. It was amazing." Story 16. Definitely a great comeback, but not to an insult, more to an annoyance. I was a camp counselor for a few years at a summer camp. One day my group took a hike to a large rock where we had lunch. My campers were between 8 and 10 years old. This one kid we'll call Jeff keeps poking another kid we'll call Matt in my group to look at this hole in the rock. It's so cool, it's like 6 inches deep. And the other kid is clearly getting annoyed just trying to eat his lunch. He keeps shoving sticks into the hole and trying to get everybody to look at it. Finally, Matt just puts down his sandwich, looks at Jeff, and goes, "I'll be 6 inches deep in your mom later if you don't shut up." I was trying so hard to be stern with this kid for saying something so inappropriate, but I kept cracking up. It was just such a disproportionately ridiculous thing to say coming from a 9-year-old. Story 17. My grandma got into a fight at the grocery store with a guy who told my 9-year-old brother to move out of the way. They were arguing, and his final words were, "Suck my dick, bitch," she said across the store. "If I could find it, bitch." Edit, not Walmart. Even better, Aldi. Story 18. Chelsea Handler told Russell Brand, "The way you are looking at me makes me want to cover my vagina." He replied, "Ma'am, if I had a rubber glove, I'd do it for you." The crowd burst into laughter, and she even acknowledged, "That was good." Story 19. My grandparents used to bicker. My grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fierier. One time, though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, "If you would lose some weight, you could do it yourself." She fixed her gaze on him and glowered, "I am thinking of getting rid of about 200 pounds of useless fat immediately." He replied, "You are going to cut off your foot?" Story 20. On a construction site one afternoon, different trades were working in the same area. Like silly team sports, the electricians always hang with the electricians and the plumbers always hang with the plumbers, and anytime they are together it turns into a pointless competition. Usually not literally. One particularly childish exchange saw two men chopping back and forth. "My ego is biggest, blah blah blah." Finally, one of them spits out this classic, "I've got girth like a can of corn," and the reply was unforgettable, "But you've got length like a can of tuna." Everyone burst into laughter. Mr. Girth tried to hide his embarrassment but was stuck. No comeback. And a room of men laughing uncontrollably. Good times. Story 21. I saw a clip of a stand-up comedian the other day, and he said something along the lines of, "The first time I had sex, it was terrible. The first time I had sex," and a woman chimed in with, "You mean yesterday?" The crowd laughed for a while, and while the comedian was waiting for them to calm down, you could see the gears turning in his head. Once it got down to basically a few chuckles, he just said, "Glad you remember." And the crowd lost it. It was amazing. Story 22. A friend of mine was being criticized by two identical twin girls in a class I had once. He replied with a troubled look on his face and said, "If you two are identical, how come only one of you is attractive?" That guy played the long game as those two girls looked rather perplexed for the rest of the session. Story 23. Glenn McGrath, an Australian cricketer, got frustrated with Edo Brandis as his every attempt to stump Brandis failed. This is what happened next. McGrath: "Why are you so fat?" Brandis: "Because every time I entertain your wife, she gives me a biscuit." Story 24. On an Indian roast show, there were two bald twin brothers and the roaster told them, "You two confuse me on a biological level. You two look like testicles, but you are both assholes. I am still waiting for an opportunity to use that." Story 25. Not heard, but read. Easily the Spartans reply to Philip II of Macedon. As Philip II of Macedon was conquering Greek city-states left and right, Sparta was left alone. Philip had achieved a crushing victory, and Sparta was relatively weak and without walls. Philip sent a message to the Spartans saying, "If I invade Laconia, you will be destroyed, never to rise again." The Spartans replied with one word, "If." Story 26. One of my coworkers was cold calling customers, trying to get appointments to drum up business. One of them told him to go fuck his hand, and he responded with, "I've got that penciled in for 3. I should be done by 4 if you'd like to come in for an appointment then." The guy laughed and ended up coming in for the appointment. Story 27. I was chatting with a couple of friends and may have suggested that I had been intimate with one of their mothers, to which the friend replied, "My mother's dead." My mouth bypassed my brain and replied, "That explains the dirt." Story 28. This happened about 5 years ago now. There was this one annoying kid in my math class in high school. He was being loud and ignoring the teacher. He was mixed race, only mentioning this because it's related. He was talking rather loudly with a guy next to him. The teacher told him to shut up. The kid made a point that he's half black and being mean to him is racist. The teacher looked him in the eyes and said, "I was talking to your white half, stupid." Hands down my favorite teacher. Story 29. My grandma asked my cousin, who had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. Cousin, it's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first. Grandma, yeah, but they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either. Point goes to grandma. Story 30. I have a bunch, but one of the more memorable ones was back in 8th grade. For context, I didn't make the basketball team in 7th grade, but I made the team in 8th grade. This kid who was on the team the previous year but didn't make it currently was really upset and telling me how bad I am and blah blah blah. I told him that if he is better than me, then why didn't he make the team? And he replied with, "It's just because of my grades, bro." So I replied with, "Oh, so you're just stupid, then?" He gave up because it was either accept that he was bad or accept he was an idiot. So, story 31. I was 14 or 15 and had a quiet nerdy friend with really bad acne. My older brother had these 3 friends, all brothers who were 2, 3, and 4 years older than me and my friend. They were all trying to be gangsters and started their own gang, which I always thought was really funny. My friend and I walked in the front door. My brother and his friends were all sitting at the TV playing Halo. One of the brothers looked at my friend and said, "Holy shit, Sam, I have 2 words for you. Acne pads." Sam replied, "Cool. And I have 2 words for you, Johnny. Speech therapy." The guy had a pretty bad stutter. He jumped right up and started trying to fight my friend. As long as I could remember after that, he wanted to fight Sam, but we just ignored them. I don't know why this stuck with me for so long. It was such a perfect delivery and shutdown of a bully. Another funny story about these 3 brothers. They were walking through my backyard after playing basketball in the mid-afternoon. I heard Johnny screaming, "Oh no, run!" And the oldest brother, who was about 5 feet 1 inch, came running up my driveway wearing his oversized jean shorts and Jordan jersey. He was trying to get away from a bat that had bitten him several times in the face and head. He ended up getting 16 or some high number of shots in his stomach because the bat probably had rabies. They were an odd bunch of guys who tried way too hard to live the gangster life but weren't any good at it. Story 32. Come on. Stop telling me how to live my life. I don't tell you how to live your life. It's not like I come down to the docks at night, knocking the sailors' cocks out of your mouth. Story 33. I can't remember the best one I've heard, but I can remember the best comeback I ever did. It is also, in fact, the only good comeback I ever did. I was in 7th grade and we were in the locker room after gym. People were discussing shoe sizes because this one kid had enormous feet. I don't know if I have small feet, but mine were the smallest. They said, "Small feet, you know what that means?" I didn't mind too much, but one kid crossed the line. He said, "Don't worry, fella. There's like 10 different ways to make it bigger." So I said, "Have you tried all 10? It wasn't very impressive, but it shut him up. Story 34. I work at a hotel. A few years ago, a guest got into a spat with our security officer over something, but she wasn't getting whatever she wanted, so she told him he was full of it. Our security officer replied immediately, "No, I'm not. I took care of that this morning, but thank you for your concern for my good health and regularity." At this time, I was about to burst out laughing, so I had to excuse myself to the back office. As I was leaving, I heard him continuing with the lady, deadpan, "But I promise I eat a healthy diet full of fiber. It warms my heart to know you're concerned about me having regular bowel movements. So, the next time I'm constipated, I know you're thinking of me." It continued on and on, And the more he played it deadpan, the madder it made the lady, while I was in the back laughing so hard I was nearly crying. After that spiel was over, though, she didn't give us any more problems the rest of the night. Story 35. Back in high school, I was in the orchestra. We went on several big national trips each year. One year, a group of upperclassmen were busted for marijuana in their hotel room. Everyone except one guy was suspended and prohibited from attending future trips. The one guy who wasn't in trouble apparently hid in the shower and played dumb, and they believed him. So a week later, the entire orchestra is practicing with the teaching assistant when our conductor enters the practice room, and in front of all 114 members of the orchestra, says, "Jason, all your friends ratted you out. They're mad. I'm mad. You played me like a fiddle." "That's what I play," Jason replied, raising his violin. Story 36. 1. Back in the day, being openly gay could be downright dangerous, but George didn't really give a. Someone called him a queen, and he responded, "I'll have you know, my mother is still alive, which makes me a princess." 2. Once worked with a Karen, who was actually named Karen. In addition to being a difficult person, she was also next-level morbidly obese. One day, I was on the phone with one of our clients who, during the conversation, complained about her to me. I took the complaint to our team lead. She said, "Yeah, I get a lot of complaints about her, but she says the clients don't like her because she's heavy." Before I could stop myself, I shot back with, "But Joe, if I were blind, I'd still think she's a difficult person.